Hello, this is Tim Law with Planet Forward Coaching, always encouraging your self-reliance. If you'll develop a marketable skill, chase that skill with a good, solid work ethic, go the extra mile, develop people and communication skills. You'll be amazed on what you can accomplish here in this country. A big thank you to over 480 people that have subscribed to this channel, Planet Forward Coaching. If you haven't already, please do so. I am very, very happy to be reconnecting with a friend of mine from too many years now that we haven't caught up, Michael Goldberg. And Michael, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your business. I'm going to Q&A you with quite a bit here.
Q&A, question answer. Right. Well, great, Tim. Great to be on board here. So I'm thrilled you carved out some time and we can chit chat, catch up the whole thing. So my story is this. I don't know if it's so much of a story, but right now I wear three hats. I guess more if you count like family man and, all that sort of stuff, right? But three professional hats, one is I'm an adjunct professor at Rutgers University. So I've been at that gig for 18 years and it's a Monday night thing. And I've been teaching public speaking there for a long time and it's a labor of love. Still do that. Second thing that I do is that I founded a national networking organization called, wait for it, the Networking Group, or TNG, we call it. So TNG now has communities in 6 different cities around the country, including New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Atlanta, South Florida, San Francisco, and soon to be Seattle, Minneapolis, Dallas, Phoenix, Tampa, Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And that's kind of a side hustle gone bad, as we might discuss later. And then really my real job, my day job, which I've been doing I'm going into my 22nd year, is I lead a speaking and training company called Knockout Networking. And I'm also a competitive fighter. We were just talking, offline that I'm actually going to be competing in the next month or so in Atlantic City, and like I do this for real, even though I'm old, but the metaphor sticks, in terms of boxing, is I teach networking skills. So in the ring, I'm trying to make more and better connections, and outside the ring, as a speaker, trainer, coach, is I'm helping sales producers make more and better connections through networking and referrals. And my niche market is the financial services industry. So I'm usually in front of financial advisors, brokers, insurance agents, planners, and reps, hedge fund people, private equity. That's really been my space, and that's really where I'm most comfortable. So how's that for a mouthful?
That's great. No, that's wonderful, Michael. And as I said, what I've always liked about you when we first met and everything is how you bring the energy, which you really do. Now, what weight class are you going in as far as the boxing event is concerned?
I'm a light heavyweight, which is between 75 and 82. So 175 and 182, right? So I'm right in there. And I keep that, that's like my natural weight, but why that works really well for me, so very Mike Tyson-esque, is he had a lot of success for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is that he had a very high guard, and he would just kind of keep going forward and laterally. And he'd usually be fighting opponents that were taller and smaller, or sometimes taller and bigger. It didn't matter as a heavyweight. And it just made sense because it was very hard for them to break in since he had this very high guard. So I do something similar. As a light heavy, it's much more regulated. I'm certainly not Mike Tyson, but I'm usually against guys. Even tonight, I'm going to be sparring and training. They'll be taller, they'll be smaller. I've got a very high guard, and I'm very hard to hit solid because of that. At least let's hope that holds true tonight, Tim.
Sure. For sure. Yeah. And what are some of the things as far as your business is concerned, Michael, that you really enjoy? Because obviously you bring a tremendous passion to a lot of things. What is it as far as the public speaking, the financial services that you can connect with? Tell us a little bit about your passion in those directions.
Well, passion's an interesting word. I am very excited about the things that I'm up to, and I get excited when people share something that they're passionate about. So really what really does it for me is if somebody can be passionate either about the things that I'm passionate about, or they become passionate about something else in our conversation. So when somebody shares that they're great at something, or more of a learning experience, if I'm working with a group of financial advisors and like a flashbulb goes off, and all of a sudden an advisor who is seasoned realizes, if I just had a niche market and I can be much more focused and much more surgical about where I need to go, what I need to say, with whom I need to say it from a networking standpoint. I wish I would have known this 15 years ago. And I get these reactions.
Mhm.
That makes my day. So
Sure.
that means that all of a sudden something happened, a learning happened, a change in behavior is about to happen. And now there's a passion behind that. And I jabbed into that. And so that's exciting to me, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's, when I'm working with a group of advisors in a group coaching standpoint, whether I'm doing a talk, or even whether I'm boxing and maybe I'm teaching, some kid.
Sure. And what as far as some of the younger generation coming up and that type of thing, what advice would you give them? Because COVID has really knocked a lot of people off their game. I see it with
Sure,
kids all the
sure.
time and all age groups. The idea that I kind of call it backside university, where they're just hanging around on their screens and phones, gaming and or doing the social media nonstop, just huge amounts of it. I realize technology is here to stay, but my concern is seeing a number of these kids and then I just know they have much more potential than what they're tapping.
Yeah, well, just because there's this whole pandemic thing doesn't mean that we can't connect with people. One of the reasons why the networking group, this organization that I created, which has been around since 2014, it started off in the real world in New York City and Philadelphia. And of course, everything happened. So it created an opportunity to go national, is that you can still make connections. So social media, you could do that too, but it's really a lot of noise and a lot of, who's saying what about me. But like what we're doing right now, we're not in the same room. We're not three-dimensional, but there's still a connection going on here. And I think as long as younger people realize that I need to really continue to sharpen my skills so I can make connections with people. It's not just like, comment, follow. I think, I think we're moving in the right direction. And I'll give you a quick example. And it frustrates my students in my Rutgers classroom, but they're not allowed to have their cell phones, like even on their desk. They can't use their phones. They can't use a laptop. They're not, it's a public speaking class. It's about engaging with people, and it's about giving people, your attention. And if you're busy texting, tweeting, you're not paying attention and you're not focused. And at first, the first couple of weeks, it's like they go into convulsions. Like after a while, they'll tell me that it's some of the most refreshing experiences that they've had, because I kind of forced them to disconnect. I mean, you take a break, and if it's something important, go outside and deal with it. But here, you got your classmates, and it's not me talking. It's them talking. It's setting up the platform where students are the ones learning how to speak. And I want to create, a comfortable, respectful, type of environment. And you can't be on your phone and have that happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, I've done an interview or two, got another one coming up with a guy named Tom Kirsting. He's in toward the north, just outside the city there in New Jersey. He's a clinical psychologist, and his expertise is, he refers to it as disconnected. That's the name of his book. And what he's done is he's showing, he goes through and he shows the addiction qualities. I mean, these phones and screens are designed to be addictive, and he's gone through a lot of the different ideas and challenges, and he's helped numerous parents and students try to disconnect from this nonstop scenario there. So what you're teaching basically, Michael, is good old fashioned belly to belly communication skills.
Yeah, that's it. And also being able to get recognition in person in real time without how many likes, how many follows, how many comments do I have? And there's a place for all that stuff. I'm not, discounting it, but I think what's happening is that, it's taking something off of the punch when it comes to, a personal connection. I think at the end of the day, it's really about the personal connections that we make, because, what happens when these kids have to now interview? And some of it might be virtual, but you still have to make a connection. And that's so important.
Absolutely. So what if you give some tips or ideas as far as your face-to-face communications and networking, Michael, what would be some tips that you would give to, or that you actually do give to some of these college students and other people you're involved with?
Well, know how to start a conversation. For one thing, like when appropriate. I don't mean like on the 3 train, transfer at the 7, but when it's appropriate, when you're at a college fair, when you're at an alumni thing, when you're at a chamber mix or a cocktail party, or wherever you happen to be, and it's really about, okay, I need to now create an affect. I need to know how to talk to people. Is know how to start a conversation. So it's usually making eye contact with somebody and smiling and walking up to them and introducing yourself, and whether it's shaking hands or, touching gloves or whatever, elbows, whether it's behind a mask or not, depending on when, where, who, it's very nice to meet you. And then knowing how to enter into a conversation, I'm glad we're connecting. May I share a quick story? Might be a good lead in. And then you just share a story, a minute or two of something that's recent, that's happened, or that's relevant, or on your way there. And then make it about that other person. Like, isn't that funny? Have you ever had that experience? Has that ever happened to you? And now all of a sudden you've broken the ice. And now that person might say, yeah, my kid is also 15 and a cheerleader and a flyer. And now you get into, that banter, and you've broken the ice. So now what's happened is, you're in the midst of, what do they call it? It's a conversation. You're in the midst of a conversation. So now once you've connected and you've got some common ground, you can start asking people questions, so what brings you to this meeting? What type of work do you do? And just have a list of questions about them. And that you're probably going to have a great connection, or that you're on your way to making a great connection when that person, after answering, says, how about yourself? Mm-hmm. And that Q&A, as you mentioned earlier, becomes collaborative. As soon as it becomes collaborative, you're on your way to Connectionville.
Sure. And let's just shift back as far as the boxing, Michael, because again, you're being involved as you have been in everything. How long have you been involved as far as the sport of boxing? And it's tremendous that you're doing it as somebody who's been a veteran for a while. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I don't think my kids are too thrilled. It's cool for them to talk about with their friends, but I know they're worried. Because you really do get hit in that ring, and my job is to figure out how to be better than that and how not to get hit. But I've been at it for about 15 years or so, maybe a bit longer. Mm-hmm. But it is a labor of love. I pay a guy to hit me. How's that for smart, right? It's but not only do I train every day and just think boxing, but I watch all the big matches. I've watched all the older matches. I mentioned Mike Tyson. I've seen, I just keep watching this stuff. I'm up on all the greats and the history of the sport and their records. And, I'm I'll read this stuff. And what's great is that with clients, because it's part of the brand and it's part of what I speak about, a lot of them can relate, especially those that are in the Northeast that might have had a connection with whomever it was. In fact, just earlier, I had a conversation with a client down in Atlanta. And I'm going down to Atlanta next week to see him. He said, would you like to meet Evander Holyfield?
Wow.
And so I'm going to meet him next week, because this guy actually is Evander Holyfield's insurance guy. So he said, I talk to him all the time. And so that's going to happen. So it made this whole, and I didn't bring it up. He brought it up because of my brand and because of who I am, what I do, what I'm into. It made it relevant, right? Sure. Talk about a connection. So now I'm going to go down there. I'm going to meet Evander Holyfield. And now I can't talk about Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Well, he did okay against Tyson because, again, I'm not saying I'm as knowledgeable about boxing as you are, but I'm more so than the average person. And I remember Tyson getting so frustrated because hitting Holyfield, it was like hitting a bag of cement. The guy was so.
Holyfield was no joke, but Tyson wasn't Tyson anymore. He was
right. Right.
So his mind was not focused the way it had once been. His management team was all different. Yeah. And Holyfield, of course, one of the all-time greats. They're both neck and neck. I think just at that time, I'm not taking anything away from Holyfield. I think, Tyson just wasn't at his best. That's just as simple as that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And since you are a big fan of boxing, let me just take you a little bit deeper there as far as who do you think can you name a couple of the all-time greats? And I realize it can shift by weight class too. So in your opinion, given skill and heart, everything needed there.
I'm going to have to say Sugar Ray Robinson is probably number one because all the experts say it. And I've watched his fights. And, the fighters back in the day, like a Sugar Ray Robinson, they didn't just fight 30 or 40 times and handpick their opponents and call it a career. He had something like 200, and somebody will check me on it, but somewhere around 240 fights or something like that, even past his prime.
He fought from 1940 to 1965.
But these guys all did that because it was about feeding their families and and it's a whole different deal. They weren't making hundreds of millions. So he was fighting every month, a couple of times a month, and a lot of these guys were, but he's got that fight count up there and his win-loss ratio is incredible. But what a great blend of speed and power and finesse, and he's right up there.
Yeah.
So Henry Armstrong's another one.
Sure.
Hammer and Hank, he's another great. The heavyweights. Everybody says Ali. I'm really more about. I just lost track of the guy's name. The guy that beat. I just lost his name. Unusual name back in the. I can't come up with his name now. I'm like embarrassed.
That's all right. It'll come back to you. No worries.
But Joe Louis, one of the best.
Yeah.
For sure. Sonny Liston, very underrated because he was, he had his own issues, but he's maybe the best jab ever. Like a Sonny Liston, sort of thing.
Sure.
But I'd put those guys right up there.
Yeah. No, there's been some great ones over the years for sure. So last second thoughts here, Michael.
Oh, Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey is who I was looking for. Yeah.
Sure. And Gene Tunney, who took out
Gene Tunney. I think Gene Tunney was one of the most underrated boxers because he wasn't a knockout artist.
Yeah.
But he lost a couple of times to a middleweight who schooled him, and then he was unbeatable.
Yeah.
And the thing about Gene Tunney is he retired on top because he made a promise to his wife. And so he ended up as a champion.
Mm-hmm.
He got a certain amount of fights in and he was done. And then he went on to be a successful business person. So he's a story that a lot of people don't know about. Gene Tunney, one of the greats.
Absolutely. So as we kind of conclude here, Michael, if you could hang around after we do shut off the recording, what last second thoughts that you have? It can be business, it can be young adults, it can be boxing, whatever you'd kind of like to conclude on here. What last second thoughts you have?
Last second thoughts. So I always share this with my Rutgers class, and invariably it comes up with clients as well. And I think it's a rule to live by, and it's not my quote. I can't think of who, and it wasn't Gene Tunney that said it, but but it's 10 little 2-letter words that are my favorite 10 little 2-letter words that are strung together. And if it is to be, it is up to me.
Yeah.
Right. So think about that. Like if there's something that you want, something that you're after professionally, personally, whatever it is, don't blame, don't rely on other people, figure out a way to make it happen. And very often the way you make it happen is going to the right places, saying the right things and meeting the right people and being very intentional about what it is that you want while you're making that connection.
Sure. No, I love it. Fantastic. And again, being a big believer as far as, self-reliance and that type of thing, that quote fits in very, very well. So, well, Michael, this has been wonderful. Can you hang for just a little bit after we close it here?
Sure.
Great. Well, thank
you.
Well,
I appreciate the time. Great job, Tim.
Well, hey, back at you. Keep that left up, as you always say.
Always.
Yes, sir.